Hello, guys. I'm Randy Ritchie. I'm here on behalf of Premier Pro Wrestling. This is actually sponsored by Premier Pro Wrestling, and it is Irish wrestlers you should know, and a household name and a constant since I want to say 1982, possibly 81, but I want to say, and as I read on, you can correct me and I'll correct myself. 1982, probably the most dominant name in pro wrestling, and that is Vincent Kennedy McMahon, or Vincent McMahon Jr. Let me start by saying I'm not besties with Vince. I've never been to Vince's house or broke bread with him or any of that. What I did do was stand out in a business that was a land of the giants as one of the smallest guys in the locker room, probably the smallest guy in every locker room I've ever been in, especially the WWF and then WWE locker rooms. The relationship that I had with Vince is I stood out. I've had the man come up to me on several occasions to point out to me that he noticed how hard I worked and exactly what I did for the company. Okay? I've also had the guy to the point where I could make him laugh. I could greet him and I could do things like walk in and go, "Vince, my man," hold up a high five and get one. Okay? Now, I'm going to go more in depth on stuff that I know about Vince, my personal dealings with Vince, but also a lot of cool and amazing things that you probably don't know if you subscribe to our Patreon. So I'm going to just, go crazy on it because, again, I'm going to say this. From a business standpoint, Vince is the pinnacle. He's the crown jewel of how to run wrestling. He's done it for how many decades, my friends? And for those of you that don't know, and you'll find out more about it in our Patreon, he fought tooth and nail, and he did not sign the most savoriest of deals to score the company or to get the company from his father, and we'll talk more about that. Vincent Kennedy McMahon was born August 24th, 1945. He is an American businessman and former professional wrestling promoter. McMahon, along with his wife Linda, is a co-founder of the modern WWE, the world's largest professional wrestling promotion. Outside of professional wrestling, McMahon has occasionally ventured into promoting other sports. His projects include World Bodybuilding Federation and XFL. And what they don't tell you, he also is the revolutionary for pay-per-view. He can credit himself for that, and he never got paid in full for what he did for that because he was huge. And I want to say these were the 70s. Yes, it had to be the 70s, where he promoted the Evel Knievel Snake River Canyon jump on a motorcycle, and also legendary boxer, the real GOAT, the person they made the term GOAT up for, the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, versus the greatest wrestling superstar in Japanese history, Antonio Inoki, in Japan. Boxer versus wrestler. Check it out for yourselves. McMahon graduated from East Carolina University with a degree in business in '68. He began his tenure in professional wrestling as a commentator for WWE, then called WWF, for most of the 70s. He bought the company from father, Vince Sr., in '82. I was right! And almost monopolized the industry. No, he has monopolized the industry. Don't kid yourselves. Nobody's making any real money in professional wrestling. There's a handful of Tony Khan's favorites over at AEW, but nobody's retiring working for AEW today, folks, and it is yet to turn a profit. Anywho, yes, he monopolized the industry, or almost, which previously operated as separate entities across the United States. This led to the development of the actual event, WrestleMania. Unbelievable. This is the truth. Linda and Vince put their heads together along with a work ethic that has been unsurpassed in the wrestling industry. I don't care what company or what performer. They rolled the dice, and WrestleMania, the rest is friggin' history, my friends. They rolled the dice. They gambled everything on it, gathering and garnering all the activity knowledge that they could, and made WrestleMania, one of the greatest sports spectacles in the history of sports over the last 44 years, I guess it would be, when the first WrestleMania in 1982. again, this is not the first time that Vince has been under investigation by the federal government. And part of the reason why I know quite a bit about Vince, and Vince has a certain respect for me. I'm sure if you said my name, it would take him a second, but he would remember it. There was a deal made, and I think it was on paper. And because if it wasn't on paper, I don't think it would have came into fruition. That Vince Sr. set up, and it was one of the conditions on the sale of the company to Vince Jr. That if Vince Jr. ever could not run the company, or if he got into some sort of trouble, or got lost, or got behind the eight ball too bad for a certain point of how the performance was as far as the profits went, he was immediately to go to the most successful wrestling promoter at that point in history, Jerry Jarrett, for help. Jerry Jarrett called me, and I want to say about 1992, possibly 93. And Vince thought then, when he was under investigation, there was an outside chance that he was going to go to jail, my friends. And he held true to his word, and he hit up Jerry Jarrett for help, for the help that I think he was bound to, because I think Vince Jr. had too much pride to ever go to anybody for help. But this was a legitimate thing. You can check the history books. It's somewhere, and it's also somewhere in maybe one of Jerry's interviews, or maybe one of Jerry's podcasts, or I want to say the Briscoe and Bradshaw podcast, at least, straight from Jerry Jarrett. But he called me in 92, possibly 93, and he told me the story, and I was very close with Jerry Jarrett. Even after I stopped wrestling for Jerry, even after Jerry closed wrestling and stepped away from wrestling, got into developing homes and construction, and he was trying to convince myself and his son, Jeff, to get out of the wrestling industry and come and work for him. We would talk most Sunday nights after 9. Sundays for Jerry Jarrett was church, Sunday dinner with the family, and then he would go to the office and conduct whatever business or prepare or prep work that was for the upcoming week, and Jerry Jarrett kept himself very busy. He called me and told me that it was on, and they were going to come to Chicago, and they were going to tape, or I think it was taping, and I don't think it was live TV. Possibly it was live TV. If it was in the first handful of live Raws, but I still think it was tape TV, Raw, and several TVs. When they did tapings then, it wasn't just Raw. They did all kind of different tapings and matches for different tapings. The taping schedule for the fan and for the company was just beyond strenuous, but they had a great way of keeping the fans in the building and keeping them interested and keep them coming back by entertaining them in the way that they would format. And nobody knows how to format, like Vince did, the way that he set up his televisions and all the televisions that he had, the main TVs, the pay-per-views, the Saturday night main events, and then also the throwaway programming. Was quite a bit of television, my friends. Anyway, Jerry hit me up and he said, now that I'm going to be running things temporarily, I need your help. You ran the loop down here, and you know this stuff better than anybody because he and I talked about it so much. He needed me to find 5 towns that were going to end. First, they're going to do the taping. Then I'm supposed to do 5 towns, book 5 towns in the area within a 240-mile radius, which is what we did in Memphis. And then they would fly out 5 days later. I want to say it was on Saturday, and gear up to do what they were supposed to do on, the weekends, or maybe it was whatever the hell. You get what I'm saying. But the point is, and Jerry Jarrett made this point, and this point is true today, and I know this to be true today, you guys would be benefiting so much more if the guys were wrestling every night of the week. We would benefit more if we were wrestling every night of the week. Reason number 1, because we would be in such shape we couldn't get hurt. Reason number 2, we would all be better performers in the ring, from your top guys on down to your green guys that are just trying to learn this industry, including NXT talent, okay? We would be so good that you guys would be coming in even more droves, purchasing tickets, merchandise, networks, and pay-per-views, and blah, 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 okay? So that's what I know, okay? And I'm going to go more into detail, on that stuff. And I should, I think that my personal experiences with Vince and all that, and pointing out things that you don't know, And for those of you that love activity, knowledge, and wrestling history, and those of you that even don't like Vincent Jr. or Vince Jr., you're going to get inside look at possibly why he does what he does, you know. I think, and I think, and I don't pay that much attention to it because the way I see it is, the way the internet rumors start, and the federal government too. There's always fake news, and they love to blow things out of proportion out of your most successful people. But devil's advocate, on the other hand, you're very successful people, and we're talking about a very successful person to this day at 78 years old. Vince Jr. is worth almost $3 billion, my friends. And sadly, what happens then is when you get so rich and powerful that the normal things aren't exciting to you anymore. And I've seen a lot of crazy things that I would never say never after knowing certain people, but seeing the things that happen with rich people and what I'm going to call weirdos. So I'm not saying that there's not an outside chance or that Vince is a clergyman, you know what I mean? But come on, I don't buy the sex trafficking for 1 second, you know. But the point I'm trying to make is his sheets aren't as clean as the preacher's, and he's not the only one, you know. Let's look at the record, look at all the big stars over history. I mean, just the big stars today, and I don't know off the top of my head, there's a lot of dark stuff behind Hugh Jackman, you know. Who's that guy that's on 911 that was part of that Brat Pack, or I think it was the Brat Pack, not the Rat Pack, the Brat Pack. Rob Lowe. Look in his history, you know what I mean? He learned from it. He moved on. People seem to have forgave and forgot because he's still on top today, you know. So Vince Jr.'s not the only one. And also, you can't just degrade the guy and forget what the guy has done for this wrestling industry. Again, I'm going to close with this. If it wasn't for Vince Jr., you guys would not have your internet wrestling community, you know, today. He's always made it fun one way, shape, or form. And even in his leaving WWE for the interim, or for now, he sure gave you guys something to talk about, didn't he? Okay, guys, more information in the description. Vince Jr.'s Wikipedia. And also, remember, this is being brought to you by Premier Pro Wrestling, and I'm Randy Ritchie. Check out how to support Premier Pro Wrestling. At the very least, please like and subscribe, because this is good-ass content. Show your support. Thank you.